Hi, this is Laura Lee Griffin.
And this is Nikki May with the Startist Society, inspiring you to stop getting in your own way and start building an art biz and life that you love.
We are artists who believe strongly in the power of community, accountability, following your intuition, taking small, actionable steps, and breaking down the barriers of fear and procrastination that keep you stuck.
Follow along with us on our creative business journey as we encourage you on yours.
A few episodes ago, we introduced you to print-on-demand marketplaces, specifically Society6 and Spoonflower. Today, we're excited to introduce you to Ashley Beasley at Presutti Design. Ashley is a surface design artist based in Houston, Texas, with a focus on repeat patterns, stationery, and print-on-demand. She believes in keeping things fun and authentic and sharing how she juggles working full-time, being a new mom, and keeping up with her passion for design.
Since she started participating in weekly Spoonflower design challenges in 2020, Ashley has already had 19 designs land in the top 50 and made over 200 sales. She's also participated in minted challenges and has won 7 of their challenges. It's proof that you can succeed in a market that we really tend to think is already oversaturated. Ashley, welcome to the Startist Society.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and get to share my experience and hopefully encourage a lot of new people starting.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We'd like to start off our interviews by getting to hear a little bit about your Startist story. Can you share with us your journey of how you came to where you are today?
Yes, it is actually a very long journey, but I think it's important for people, especially starting out, to know that it's not always quick and easy. So hopefully sharing all the years of my fails and trials will kind of help, encourage people to keep going. So I actually started a very long time ago. I went to the Art Institute of Houston in 2008. So I've been using Adobe programs for a very long time. And I graduated with a degree in graphic design in 2011. And immediately following that, I actually was contacted by a company to come work for them as a graphic designer. And I actually still work there today. So I've been there nearly 10 years as a corporate designer.
Yeah, 10 years is a good long time. I had a 10-year corporate design stint too.
Yeah, you definitely learn a lot working in the corporate world. And actually, when I started working there, I had no idea about anything. I was really inexperienced. I mean, obviously, I knew how to use programs, but I didn't know anything else outside of just my little bubble of graphic design. And I learned what surface design was there because there was a department who actually made repeat patterns. And I was amazed. I had no idea that you could be paid to do that. And so I didn't work in that department, but I definitely pushed myself into their projects whenever I could. I was like, hey, if you ever need any help or if I can design something for you. And a few years later, they gave in and they let me create some patterns for bags that were actually sold in stores. So
awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yes, from that very moment, I was absolutely in love with the idea of pattern design. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, being able to see your artwork come to life on a product. So I was instantly, I wanted to do that, but I didn't think I could ever do that on my own. I thought, well, you need to work in a corporate place like I already am doing to even have that opportunity.
Right.
So I didn't pursue it. So this was I learned what it was in 2012 and I had my design on the bag in it was 2014 or 15, and then I never did anything with it on my own. So I actually got an itch to do my own design work. And I was like, I'm going to open an Etsy shop and I'm just going to make prints and little downloadable things and invitations. And I didn't have any kind of game plan. I just was I'm just going to come up with random stuff.
A little something on the side.
Yeah, it was just a little side gig for fun. And I thought maybe I could make a few bucks here and there. And I did make a few bucks here and there. But I mean, back then I didn't know what I was doing. I was undercharging like a lot of people do when they start out.
Definitely.
So it was all going well. It wasn't anything that I thought like, oh, this is going to be a big business. I'm just having fun doing it. And then one day I had a really bad client and she wanted a logo. And, I was like, oh, here, it's like $100 and there's no contract involved. And you already know where that's going. So it was really bad. And the person kind of like pushed me around for a really long time because I didn't want to get a 1-star review. And in that moment, I felt like defeated. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good at this. And so I put my shop on vacation mode for about a year or maybe even longer. And so, then I started getting, the passion to do like artistic stuff again. It was really just like, I was like, oh, I want to become Instagram famous. I'm like, I'm going to do hand lettering. You don't just become Instagram famous. I'm still not Instagram famous. But
wait, so you don't just decide to become famous and become famous?
I know. You would think that.
That's what we're doing wrong, Laura.
I just can't believe it doesn't work that way.
I know.
So yeah, never got famous instantly. I did everything under the sun that you can think of. I was like, oh, one day I'm a hand letterer, and the next day I'm a watercolor artist, and the next day I'm a wedding stationer, and the next day I'm all about branding. And so I, all over the place, honestly. And
right.
And it was because I was suppressing my passion for pattern design. That's really what I wanted to do. And I just didn't think that there was any room for it. So let's skip ahead a little bit. So the year's 2019. I'm all in on branding. And then
is that mostly what you do in your corporate job?
In my corporate job, it's really, it was a lot of like marketing materials. So like catalogs and hang tags and like consumer facing stuff like on the shelf in the store.
Okay.
Corporate branding kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So in my business in 2019, I was doing branding stuff. And I spent like pretty much the whole year like setting up my website for branding and all this stuff. And then in July or August, I found out I was pregnant. And so I was really excited. And then I was like, oh no, like I feel so tired. Like what happens if I never stop being tired? Like, will I be able to do like such high demand client work? Like that sounds really scary. So
yeah.
I was like, I just want to do artwork that I can do for myself and maybe get some passive income from it and not have to worry about constantly creating client work on like in the moment. So I, at the time, was following Jenna Rainey, and she had just released her Brand Plus Brand course. And I was like, wow, she's talking about exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
She puts her artwork onto products and she gets money after the fact. So I decided to take that class, and I was like, okay, well, it's totally possible. Like you can do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just not even going to worry about like making money in the moment. I'm going to make art and I'm going to try to sell it, whether it is on print on demand or eventually licensing. So I started, I made a few little patterns and I didn't know what to do with them. And then I realized I really wanted to make a baby blanket. So I came up with a design for my son. His a wolf pattern with moons. It's actually in my shop. And I asked my mom, hey, if I find some fabric, a way to print it, will you sew it for me? And she said, yeah, of course, because I don't know how to sew. So I Googled, I guess, I don't even remember the exact words, but how to print your own fabric, probably. And Spoonflower popped up.
Right.
This wasn't the first time I'd heard of Spoonflower. I'd seen it before, and I didn't really know how legit it was. But there's so many designs on there. And I was like, well, it has to be legit. Why would people just be uploading all their artwork constantly if they weren't getting paid for it? So I was like, I'm just going to do it. Either way, I want my blanket. So I'm at least going to upload what I can. So I had my baby blanket design, and then I had 3 other patterns in an assortment of colorways. And I uploaded them, and I got my swatch sampler. So for those of you who don't know, whenever you want to sell your patterns on Spoonflower, you have to order a sample first. So having a swatch sampler or a filiard is a good way to do that and save money. So I just uploaded, I think it was, 28 designs maybe. And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's get them for sale. It took me like a month to hit the order button. I was really nervous. I was like, I don't know, should I do it? Is it gonna work out? Am I wasting my money on this and no one's ever gonna buy them? And but it all worked out. So I got my blanket in. My mom sewed it for me. I loved the material. I thought it was really great quality. And I was just so impressed by having this design in my hands and seeing my other designs in my shop. It was really just like sparked something in me. And even before I ordered them, like I just kept being like pulled to Spoonflower. I was like, just do it. So it was like this gut instinct telling me like just to get on Spoonflower or just to get started. And I felt really good about it. And I think, having a good mindset to start with is really like half of people's success. Is like, you don't want to go into something like feeling bad about it. You want to feel good about it. And I felt good from the beginning, and it's done really well for me. And I even have some updated stats for you. I just checked yesterday.
Ooh, tell us.
For 2021 alone, I made 400 sales exactly yesterday.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So 610.
That's more than a sale a day.
Yeah. So it's really exciting.
Well, and especially since, like we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, a lot of people think that Spoonflower is super saturated, right? Like there's no room for anybody new to come in. You just started this in the last, 2 years? Mm-hmm. And to see what has blossomed and how many sales that you've had is so incredibly encouraging, right?
Yes, definitely. I started it just hoping that I would make back the money that I spent on that first sample of designs. So I was like, all right, I just need to make, 20 sales and I'll at least have earned back what I spent on it. So knowing that I spent or earned a lot more, it was a big success for me, even though, I'm not a 6-figure Spoonflower earner. There's plenty of people who, they make like $10,000 in a month. I'm definitely not there yet, but it's still really successful in my eyes, just knowing that I've made it this far.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we think you're perfect to interview for this, Ashley, because our whole thing with our podcast and everything that we do is, we're not the big 6-figure artists either. We're all about how do you get started and then how do you take the next best step. And we'd love to have some people who have, quote, made it huge, but we also like to have people on the podcast who are just starting to find their legs and getting some success in it. And you're perfect for that because you're actually doing everything that we talk about doing on this podcast.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel good because I feel the same way. When you hear someone that's making 6 figures, like that's really cool and it's really encouraging. But at the same time, when you're just starting out, it's super overwhelming. So it's nice to get like that middle ground and the people starting out.
Yeah, it's more relatable.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So we're interested in your whole story. But like Laura said, we introduced in our last few episodes about print-on-demand marketplaces, Spoonflower and Society6 especially. And so we're really interested in your Spoonflower experience. Tell us everything. Tell us about, that's how you got started, but then how did you start doing the contests and how did you get found in those?
Yeah. So I actually wrote a blog on this, and it's funny because like my website, I don't think it's any traffic except for my 3 Spoonflower blogs. And I wrote a blog called How I Made 200 Sales in Spoonflower in 1 year. And basically, I'll just kind of tell you about that because that's really the story.
Yeah.
So I uploaded those first designs I told you about. And then I was kind of like, well, now what do I do? Like, I don't know. Do I just keep making designs that I like? Do I need to figure out what other people are liking? And so I was just kind of browsing Spoonflower's website and just trying to get myself familiar with their platform and, what kind of designs are out there. And I noticed that they had design challenges. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. And I'm the type of person who works a lot better under pressure.
Same.
I am too.
I need a deadline. It's the same at my day job. Like if there's no deadline on a project, I'm just gonna take my sweet time doing it. So it's like, but if they're like, we need it tomorrow, like I'll get it done tomorrow.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, well, this is perfect accountability. There's a week in between each challenge, and they put a couple of them up there in advance so you can see about 4 or 5 of them at a time. And it's nice that it's only one a week. So you can submit like in advance, but you don't have to worry about like, oh, well, 2 of them are due on the same day. So you don't have to like fight with that or anything.
And do you submit just one design or can you submit more than one?
It's only one design. So you just have to pick your best one that goes with it.
No, that's good.
And people are very serious in design challenges. I'm a part of a Facebook group called Spoonflower Fans, and I will tell you the people in there take it very seriously. Like if you made this pattern like 3 months ago and then the challenge is announced, people will be like, hey, I've seen that pattern before. This wasn't brand new for this challenge. So definitely.
But it's not a requirement that it has to be, right? It just has to fit the challenge.
They say that it should be new because the whole reason for the challenges is that they're looking for fresh new designs. So if you're like picking a design that's been up for sale for a year, you know.
Gotcha.
I mean, I don't know if anyone's really going to take it down, but I try to follow the rules. So I like to make brand new stuff that I haven't had for sale yet. And actually, my very first challenge, I didn't do this rule because I didn't understand. And I was like, oh, well, I have one of these patterns. I'm just going to recolor it to fit this challenge. And I placed, it was like 150 or something out of like 800. I don't remember the exact number. But I was really surprised. I was like, wow, that did a lot better than I thought. I was expecting like one vote going to be like 900th place. So,
well, yeah. And then did you do anything to help? Did you share it and to try to help get votes? Did you have a big following that was voting for you or?
No. So I absolutely have like 0 following that cares about my patterns. And
well, come on, you've got at least 2 right here.
Well, now I have more, but at the time starting out, like I have absolutely no following, which is why print on demand is such a great thing for people like me who don't have an audience. But I shared on my social media, like, hey, I submitted to Spoonflower's challenge. Go ahead and vote for me. And P.S., you can vote for as many designs as you like, which is nice. So you don't have to feel like you're like bribing people into voting for you.
Right.
But, you know, they make it really hard because they don't want to play favorites. So like, it's not like you can just go directly to mine and vote for it. You got to scroll through 1,000 designs and find mine. Right. So, you know, I'll announce it, but I don't really know how many people are going out of their way to give me a vote. So that's why I don't think voting's rigged. I've heard people be like, oh, it's a favorite scam. But I'm like, I can guarantee you I don't have like 100 friends going and voting for me every single time. So yeah, I did pretty good that first time. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do another one. And, you know, I did a little worse that time. I mean, it was still pretty good. It was like 200th place, I think, out of like 800 something. And I didn't even follow the brief that well because it was supposed to be like animals and florals, and I just did florals. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to just kind of like take a break from it and kind of think about it. And then there was a challenge coming up for the Nugget Comfort. It's like this kid's couch. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's just like the coolest thing in the world. Like I would love for my pattern to be on that. And so I did a pattern. I was like, oh, I don't think anyone's going to vote for this at all. I just like, this is just too out there. And there was like over 1,100 entries and I made it into the top 50 with a tie at 51. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe that many people voted for me. And it was like not my friends or anything. It was like strangers.
That's super encouraging.
Definitely very encouraging.
It ended up being a really good seller for a long time. And I couldn't believe it because it's like just a really abstract painterly kind of pattern. And I was surprised. I was like, wow, I just didn't think anyone liked that. And that was like my first sale. I had one sale before that. And it was like a test swatch. I made 50 cents and I was so excited. And then I started getting sales on that. And it was actually like right when I had my son, I was in the hospital, like recovery room. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to check my phone. And I was like telling my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, I just made 6 sales. And he was like, what? And I was like, oh, like, you know, I'm all excited about my baby. And I'm over here like also really excited about this other design baby that I have. And I couldn't believe it. So I was like, there was so much to celebrate that day. So I'll never forget that moment. And then I made like someone bought 25 yards of that fabric. And I was just like, ooh, wow, there is something to be said here. Like, you know, people are buying fabric on this website and like in larger quantities. And so I decided to just participate in more challenges. And, I always did well. So even if I didn't place in the top 50, which you can have ties, so there can be more than 50, I still always did really well. Like people are liking my stuff or they're saving it to a collection. And that's really what you're wanting, is just to get your stuff out there in front of people. And even if, you don't place in the top 50, the people who are liking it, they genuinely like it. Like they will probably come back and buy it eventually. So definitely don't be discouraged if you aren't placing well. Even if you place, 600 or 700, if people are liking it, that's all you need.
And how many challenges have you done so far, Ashley?
I probably did one every other week in the year 2020. And then for 2021, I did a lot less of them.
Now, one of the things I think is true, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you place in the top 50, then you don't actually have to order a swatch in order to sell it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. So you get a monetary prize for first, second, and third, and I think even up to 10th place, you get a monetary prize. And then everything else in the top 50, including ties, it's just automatically for sale.
That's a nice little benefit.
Yeah, it is. And so definitely, if you're starting out and you're worried about ordering the samples because you're not sure if things are going to sell, just if you start participating in design challenges and you do well, then there you go. Like that's already for sale. You didn't have to order anything. And it's not like Etsy where it looks bad if you only have one design in your shop. People aren't looking at your shop really. They're just looking at the design. So you don't need to fill your shop with tons of stuff. It's a good way to get started.
Okay. That's also very encouraging. So don't feel like you can't start with one or two designs.
Yes, exactly. I would say if you are starting small, then the design challenges are the way to go because that's how people are really going to find you. Otherwise, I think you would need to fill your shop with a lot of things.
Right.
Well, let's also talk about other ways that you can get found. Do you pay attention to what you title the things? Do you use a lot of tags or specific kinds of tags?
Yes. So when you upload your design, you want to give it a really good descriptive title. So I would do something that actually explains what the design is. So I wouldn't name it anything weird.
Not just a cute, clever name.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I did that in the very beginning, and then I actually went back and updated a lot of things. And then you get 13 keywords, and you want to use them all. They want it to be descriptive. What's in the design, what color's the design, what style is it. And then there's a place for an additional description, actually two places. There's a mini description and then a detailed description. And I usually never do the more detailed description. I don't think it really does anything.
As long as you get your keywords in the short one and the title and everything.
Yeah, I think that's good enough. Definitely if
it's not like people read.
No, I don't think so. And I don't know how great their website is at SEO, but I would think if it's already in the other places, and I think it's okay.
Right.
So you mentioned that you got in the top 50, you started doing more of the challenges. So did you start seeing an uptick immediately on sales because of those challenges, you think?
Yes. So everything that I had a lot of sales in was most likely from a design challenge. So it's not to say that you can't make sales from other things, but the fact that I was submitting it and getting it in front of eyes and people were liking it, those are the things that were selling. And then you can make collections. So you can add it to a collection with other things that are similar. And that also helps people to find your designs. But definitely everything that I had a lot of sales in is because of the design challenges. And that's why I decided to focus on those.
So speaking of collections, so I know that on Spoonflower, you can group things into collections that are similar. But that's kind of not really used the same way as we talk about fabric collections, where you have coordinating patterns. Do you do that sort of collection, or are most of yours sort of one-offs?
I kind of do a mix of both. So I don't really have a ton of full pattern collections, but I've started more recently adding more of those. So I do have both collections of here's like something that just goes together. And then I have random things like here's animals. So anything that's animal related, or here's your fruits, or here's your stripes or your dots. You can go both ways with it. People, they're looking for one thing. They just want to see what else goes with it or what else you have in there. So I don't think there's any perfect way to make a collection.
Do you think people purchase your patterns together? Do people buy multiple styles like to make quilts, or do they mostly just do one-offs?
This is a really interesting question because honestly, I'd like to know myself. A lot of my purchases are from guest users, which I find really interesting. So I don't know if it's people who like, they don't want to be found, or they just randomly stumbled upon Spoonflower. I have no idea. I definitely can see some people who have username accounts, but whenever I get a purchase, it is always like one thing at a time. At least that's how it is for me.
I found that too for myself. I don't have nearly as many sales as you do, but it's all random people just buying one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I have noticed a couple names come back, but it doesn't seem like anything that's consistent. So I don't think that they're using it for the same thing. And
interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of times I never know what people are creating with it. And I even like added to my little shop profile, like, oh, I'd love to see it. Like, here's my Instagram. Yeah. And I have an automated message that goes out. And I was really worried if it was annoying, but literally just 2 days ago, someone responded to it and they were like, hey, I just want to let you know how much I love your automated message, because there's no pressure because you told me it was automated, but it was still really friendly. And I was like, okay, well, that makes me feel good.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So maybe she'll share with me what she decides to create. But, just recently I have seen a few people share on Instagram and like, someone, they made a really cute little plush doll from it. And someone else she just sent me a picture through Instagram message. She doesn't use Instagram, but she was like, oh, I made, rocking chair cover for my little nephew. And so it is nice. Sometimes I get to see what they're doing, but for the most part, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that your creativity is inspiring somebody else to be creative, which I think is really cool.
I know. That's like the best part about it, is that like, not only am I doing this for fun for myself, but just knowing that other people are having fun with it too is just really great.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to ask a couple technical questions. So one of those, when you create your patterns, are you using Procreate, Illustrator, or Photoshop? What kind of software do you use?
I use a combination of Procreate and Illustrator. So pretty much everything I do, I draw in Procreate as like really simple graphics that I can take into Adobe Illustrator and then easily vectorize. And then I just rebuild everything from there. So like, if I have a dog with spots, like the dog and the spots would be separate, and I would color them and like replace them together to make my little image. And then I build the repeat in Illustrator, color it all in there. So the majority of it was really done in Illustrator, but the meat of it's done in Procreate.
Drawing the motifs.
Yes. And I find that I just have a lot more control that way. And I like to be able to easily change colors. And that's why I love vectors so much. Initially, I really wanted to do like watercolor art and even digital watercolor. That's what the initial baby blanket was just a gray digital watercolor. But, that's like a lot more goes into it when you have stuff like that. Yeah. Either you have to do it in Photoshop, which I know how to use, but I don't like doing it for patterns. Or I don't really necessarily like to have to vectorize something that's supposed to look like watercolor. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally would rather just be solid at that point. So that's what all my artwork is, pretty much just solid blocks of color.
Yeah. Have you ever tried the new Illustrator for the iPad? And then that way you're still drawing on the iPad, but going straight to vector?
I have tried that, and I don't have the patience for it yet. Like, I was using it and it's just not as, I guess, intuitive, or I'm so used to using the functions of Procreate, like the back and the taps and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, just screw this. I'm taking it into Illustrator on the computer.
I've tried that just a little bit too, but I just feel like it's so much easier to draw in Procreate than it is to draw starting with vectors.
Yeah, it feels a lot more natural to me. I feel like I'm drawing on paper rather than I don't know, Illustrator, it feels like I'm using a tool. So
yes,
I agree.
I agree. Absolutely.
Have you ever uploaded a pattern to Spoonflower and then had a problem with the repeat?
No, I haven't. And probably maybe the first time I did because I didn't maybe understand, but otherwise I've never seemed to have a problem with it. Making sure that whenever you export, your art is bleeding over the edges so you don't get that white line. I know that's a big issue for a lot of people starting out is they don't understand where that line's coming from. And it's just important that every little pixel's covered. So make sure you bleed over the edges. And then Spoonflower also, you're uploading the repeat itself. So I've seen a couple people message me like they're confused and don't understand. And they were uploading like a big swatch rather than the repeat.
Yeah.
And I was, so like one time I was like, can you send me a picture of what you're doing? Because I don't understand how this is happening. And I was like, oh, you didn't do the repeat. So just knowing those two things alone will really help you on the technical side when you're uploading. And then a lot of it's trial and error. So, definitely just start with one, make sure you got it down before you go trying to upload like 20 designs and realize that you got them all wrong.
But actually having them force you to have them printed sometimes can help you find an error in your repeat before you sell it to somebody. I had one really complex pattern that there was a mistake and I didn't see it until it was printed.
Yes, that's very true. There was even one time where I somehow forgot to bleed my background and there was a line in it and I was like super embarrassed. But the print technician, I guess, noticed it and emailed me and they're like, hey, there's a line in here. Can you fix it? And I was like, wow.
Oh, that's great that they caught it before it went out there.
Yeah. So that was really nice. And I was like nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, is this like printed before? And I was like going back and looking and I don't think anyone ordered that colorway yet, but they'd ordered that design in other colorways. So then I had to like go back and check them all and they were fine. So I don't know what happened that one moment. So yeah, definitely, slow and steady, double check everything, be careful about what you're uploading.
Now, do you have customers reach out to you that say, I love this pattern, Ashley, but can you change the size of it? Can you make the pattern bigger or smaller and scale it?
Change the color.
Yes. So I'm totally cool with a scale adjustment because I plan on uploading things in multiple scales anyways. And sometimes I just don't get around to it. So if someone does want smaller or bigger scale, I'll just go ahead and do that for them. And I'll just end up uploading, all the other sizes that I didn't. And then I'll send them all to them. Like, there you go. Now you have like 4 to choose from. And when it comes to colors, that's where things get a little different. It's one thing if it's like a one color print and someone says, I want this exact text code, like, okay, that's, fair enough. But if it's like, I want this whole thing totally recolored, then, you're talking a whole new design here. So definitely something I can do for them and I'd be happy to. But at that point, like, I don't know what they're looking for. So it would be like a side conversation. Like, I'm going to charge you for my time to have to recolor all this stuff. There was one time starting out, I did it for someone for free and it actually worked out just fine. She wasn't picky or anything. She was like honest with me from the beginning. She was like, look, I only want a yard of this, but I just wish it was green. And she didn't have any like specific green. She was like, I want it to be like a forest hunter green. And so I was like, well, I'll upload something in what I think looks good. But if you want it like in another colorway beyond that, like I'm going to have to charge you for it separately. And she ended up liking the color I did. So
that's really smart because a lot of times people will say, oh, I wish this was in this color or this scale, and you change something and they never buy it. So
yeah,
definitely anytime somebody asks you for custom work, I would definitely say, I would be happy to do that for you. It will cost this or pay in advance.
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend doing anything for free. I was just like excited and being nice and it ended up working out fine. But there was another instance, I think, where someone wanted something totally different. And I was like, no. Yeah, you're going to have to pay me for it. And then no one wants to pay, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, someone else did it for me for free. And it's like, well, great for them, but I'm not. So.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think if it's something that was a good suggestion that you're like, oh, I kind of wish I'd thought about that, or maybe I would have done that anyway, then there's no problem. But if it's something custom for somebody that.
Exactly. And I actually really liked the color that she wanted. And it's funny, just for Christmas, I got that design. It was my fishing design, like a lake house theme. And I got it printed on a blanket through Society6, another print on demand, for my father-in-law. So I liked her color idea, making it green. So it worked out for me too. I used it.
Cool.
So when it comes to scale, do you normally upload things, Ashley, at a really high resolution so that then you can scale it up or down when people do ask, or do you upload it separately every time?
I absolutely upload everything separately. I don't know what that problem is, but in the very beginning,
it is a bit confusing.
The very beginning, I uploaded designs at 300 DPI, and it has that smaller function. I don't trust it. I just don't. I don't think, other people might have perfectly, good experiences with it, but I don't trust it. And I don't think anyone else should either.
That's good to know.
And I say this because one of my designs is totally fine repeat. I uploaded it at 300, and then all of a sudden I realized, I don't know if it was just the website itself glitching, but it messed up the scale. Like, it didn't scale it proportionately, and like the design was cut off, like when you look at like a yard view. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this like how it's actually printing? I got really nervous. So I went back into my file and I made sure it was that same size. So I had to get out the rulers and look, and I exported it at 150, which is what they really suggest you do. And I will export everything at 150 at the size I want. So that is going to be the 100% size you get. So if you want your dot to be 5 inches, then make it 5 inches at 150 DPI and it'll be 5 inches.
Okay.
And so
that makes sense. That just avoids any possibility for that getting screwed up.
Yeah. So, it might have just been like an error on the screen, but I don't trust it. So I do that. And then, when someone does come back and they say, hey, could you make this scale like 50% smaller? And I already can see what it looks like. I can just go into my file. I already know exactly what scale I have that at. I don't have to remember, did I downsize this at 150 or anything like that? So it's a lot easier for me. I, have a good workflow now. I set up my files to where I have all the artboards in one file, and I write here's what 100% is, and here's what 50% scale is. And so I know exactly what scale I've already uploaded. So it's just super more organized for me. That's just how I prefer to do it.
That makes sense.
So when you upload, do you normally upload then at multiple scales?
I do. I think it's just easier. I like to have the options, but I definitely don't think it's necessary for you to do, especially starting out. If you're concerned about spending the money on trying to get things sampled, whenever you win a design challenge or get really good amount of likes or place in the top 50, I would use that as your marker for hey, this design has a lot of appeal to people. So I'm going to take this design and I'm going to upload it in all the different scales now. And maybe I'll upload it in multiple colorways because I already know people like the original design. And I think that's a really good starting point.
That's a great tip.
That way, you're not just making a bunch of designs. You don't know if people are even going to like them, because I've definitely uploaded tons of things and tons of scales, and some of them haven't sold yet. Some of them do, but, otherwise, you just don't know exactly what you're getting. But everything that has been in a design challenge, I've done multiple colorways, multiple scales, and they sell. So
smart.
So do you happen to have any other tips on marketing on Spoonflower, Ashley?
I think marketing on Spoonflower really just comes down to your keywords and your descriptions. Because like I said earlier, I don't have a huge fan base. I'm just now starting to reach people on Instagram who are makers and who sew and use fabric. And, that's after 2 years of being on Spoonflower. So,
right.
I guess I'm just not a great marketing person. I don't know. But so, that's my future goal, is that hopefully I will reach more people and be able to market outside of Spoonflower, because otherwise you really are just leaving it up to the website itself. And that's why I think design challenges are the way to go when you're like me, starting out, don't have an audience. That's the way to get found. And Normally the word exposure in the design world is just like a sin. You don't ever want to, you don't ever want to get paid by exposure or anything. But in this case, you need the exposure to even get your stuff seen. So I definitely think it's good in this case to just try to participate and get yourself out there. And, I have like 3 mindsets for design challenges. And the first one is to get noticed. So you're like me, you're new, you're starting out. No one knows who you are. No one's seen your artwork. And you just want to participate just to get noticed. You're not trying to like win first prize or anything like that. You're just using it as, I need some ideas. Here's a brief to work on. Here's accountability, and people are going to see it.
Yeah.
And then like the second mindset is you need to get inspired. So that's what, again, you're using it as the brief, and, maybe you're kind of like, oh, I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to create. So, I don't really care how I place or anything like that. And then the third one is to win a top 50. And that's where you might sacrifice your style to make it fit the brief more. So that way people will vote for it more. Like maybe you hate the color palette they're suggesting you use. And it's not something you would never do, but you really want to like try to win top 50. So you're like, I'm going to use this brown color that I hate because that's what they're telling me to use. And actually, one of my designs, I hated the color palette that they suggested. And I was like, well, I'm going to use all 3 colors in this color palette, even though it's not required to use all 3. But that's like what people are looking for, I think, when they go to vote, is they're looking for the one who used all 3 colors. And and I absolutely hated it. But I made it in another color palette that I did like. And about a week ago, it was on Christmas Eve. Someone bought 14 rolls of wallpaper. It was $100 commission.
Wow.
Nice.
I think they found it because, the original design had a lot of likes on it. And they probably clicked like, let's see more in this collection, and found the other colorway, or probably, popped up at the bottom somewhere. So.
Well, I also want to point out that you say you're not good at marketing or you're whatever, but your first year you made 200 sales.
Yes.
And your second year you made 400 sales. So you doubled it in the next year.
Yeah, that was my goal. It's funny, though, because when I wrote that blog, I felt like really silly writing it. And I had like major imposter syndrome. Like I was like writing it. And as I was like going to publish it, I was like, what am I doing? Like that's not even 1 sale a day. And like, I'll be honest, most of those sales were like a single yard. So what, you make like $1.70 off of that. So I was like, oh man, I was like, I don't know, like, should I even post this? Like, I feel kind of like stupid.
But clearly.
Yeah. I kept seeing people be like, oh, hey, how many sales did y'all make this year? And people are like, oh, I made like 10 or 20 or 30. And I was like, okay, well, clearly, there's people who are struggling out there. So like this was good. And it was good for me because I initially went into it hoping to make 20 sales. And I published the blog, and then that blog gets saved all the time on Pinterest, probably like once a day. I was like, wow, there's a lot of people out here just hoping to make 200 sales. So yeah, I did something right.
Yeah, you definitely did something right.
You need to do a follow-up blog. How I doubled my sales on Spoonflower in 1 year.
You know what? That's funny. I was actually just thinking about earlier because I posted my 2021 year in review, and I was like, you know what? I should go back to that blog, and I should do like a little update at the top of it and be like, P.S. I've actually done better. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Share that thing again.
Yes. So I'm going to have to do that.
And I think you actually have a downloadable guide for surface pattern designers who want to get into Spoonflower, right?
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So because my blog was shared so much, I realized that people, were really curious about Spoonflower and how to get started. And, you can Google and you can go onto Facebook pages, and, definitely I've seen the questions asked a million times elsewhere. So it's not like hidden information or anything, but it's just all in one spot. And it's from my point of view, my perspective. It's really just an inspirational guide. Like, here's some very most frequently asked questions that people ask who they're starting out. Here's what I do. Here's what can help you. And then at the end of each little chapter, I have a little homework assignment like, okay, now you do this. So it's kind of like an actionable workbook in a way, but it's really more like an inspirational read to help you get started, answer some of your frequent questions. And it's really like kind of a ticket also to chat with me about it. So I write in there like, hey, definitely email me if you have more questions. Like, I'd love to add to this book, or I'd love to just chat with you one-on-one. I've had a handful of sales of it, and, you know, me being the terrible marketing person I said I was, I never advertised it besides on my blog, really. So, I mean, the people who did buy it, you know, they just happened to find it. It wasn't from me like trying to promote it or anything. And I didn't want to promote it because I was like, you know, there's so many things being sold to us surface designers and artists. Like, here's a class and there's so much FOMO going on. So I was like, you know, and I'm just going to like put it out there. It's going to be casual. If people find it, they want it, like, awesome. Definitely. I want it to be like their own decision that they found it and wanted to buy it. But yeah, they took advantage of emailing me, and they emailed me this like huge long paragraph about like, you know, how can I get to where you're at and how do I get started and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I had a really detailed response, and she responded back. And so it was just a nice, like, knowing that I'm helping someone else who's getting started. And it's really cool knowing that they like think I'm like super successful, and they like, they want my input and stuff like that. So it's really nice. And I definitely hope to add to it in the future and make it this like really in-depth book that, you know, maybe is more than Spoonflower. Maybe it's like a full surface design guide eventually one day.
Well, it looks beautiful. I'm looking at it on your website right now.
Thank you.
And I mean, obviously it's beautifully designed because you're a designer.
Yes.
But it looks like it's got a lot of really great info. In fact, I might have to click that buy button myself.
Ooh.
And we will absolutely link to it in our show notes.
Well, if you sign up for my newsletter, there is a little coupon code in there. And I'm also terrible about my newsletter, but I do give that.
Excellent.
So I want to shift gears a little bit, Ashley, and just talk quickly about Minted. Nikki and I don't have any experience on that platform, but I know that you've actually won some challenges there and that you are diving into that. I would love to know what that experience has been like for you so far.
So I decided to start Minted. It was the very end of 2020. I opened a shop, and, well, you can't open a shop. You can create an account and start submitting the challenges. So there was like one challenge opened at the moment. It was like a graduation challenge, and it was the submission deadline was like that night or that next day. And I was like, well, I just want to like understand how this works. So I just like made something really quick, not expecting it to like to win or anything. And I just wanted to like, let me just download the challenge kit, understand how their upload process works, and just kind of get my feet into it. And so I did that, and I was like, okay, you know, that wasn't too hard. Just they give you the templates, and you submit everything a certain way. And you can see like the critique period, and you can comment on people's stuff. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do this for the next one. And they had the long copy quickfire challenge open, which is for greeting cards. And you had to come up with your own long copy. And so I don't know how many designs I submitted, maybe 10 of them.
So on Minted, there's no limit to how many you can submit?
Well, not exactly. So some things don't have limits and other things do. Like if it's something like a wedding or holiday, they might say you can only submit 15 or 30 things. If you're one of their like prize members, which is called CMYK, you might be exempt from that limit. So there is definitely benefits for being really good on Minted. But for some things, yeah, there's no submission limits, which is really nice because, you know, when you have a lot of ideas, like you don't know what to do. So just kind of do them all and submit them. But definitely, you know, quality over quantity for Minted. And I know I submitted stuff that, you know, I thought was cute, but I wasn't like, oh, this is like great. It was still kind of like a learning experience. And I ended up winning like 3 of those cards. Was it 2 or 3 of those?
That's awesome.
And the very first one, they reached out and that they'll do early file request. And they sent me an early file request for one of them. And they were like, hey, we really like your card, but we want to put your copy on someone else's artwork. I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I'll take it, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want to sell it into Target. And I was like, okay, like, I'm definitely not going to argue with that. So by all means, put it on whatever artwork you want. Just take it. And so I was like, wow, I can't believe like basically my first challenge, they wanted to put one of my cards, even though it wasn't my artwork. They still wanted to put my words.
That's awesome. That certainly encourages you to enter more challenges, right?
It does. Oh yeah. So it was like that same like fire from when I like, 150 first place in Spoonflower. I was like, oh my gosh, I just got to keep doing this. And I will say Minted is a lot more competitive, a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm not want to say stressful, but sometimes they'll like pile on the challenges and they'll have like really short deadlines or they're all at once. So then you're like, oh, there's like 5 challenges all due next week. Like,
so there's no regular weekly schedule like with Spoonflower?
No, it's a lot more up in the air. And sometimes it is at like the mercy of a partnership. Like there's Pottery Barn and we submitted to that in like June, I think. And they still haven't even announced the winners to it.
Oh, wow.
Because they're like waiting on Pottery Barn.
And now you can't open your own shop on Minted until you've won a challenge. Is that correct?
Exactly. Once you win a challenge, you get a store and then you do have the ability to self-launch certain products. I'm not really sure if it's totally worth it. I did it for 2 things. I wanted to buy myself a notebook or I wanted to buy notebooks as like gifts. So I uploaded a notebook design. It was really easy.
Yeah.
But then I did like a Christmas card design and it was just a lot more tedious to go through the process of submitting it.
Do they have to approve each individual item?
Yeah, I think so. It's just really complicated setting it up and all the little certain things they make you do. And then it got like stuck in the processing queue for like weeks. And I was like, is this right? And I had to email them. And they're like, oh no, that was an error. So it was supposed to go through and it didn't. So I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna like waste my time on self-launching things.
So you're sticking to the challenges?
Yes. So I ended up getting a few more greeting card challenges. And then I got like super discouraged because I won like 6 greeting cards like up front. And then I submitted other challenges and I like wasn't getting wins. And I was like, oh man, like this is like a real bummer. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like really try like harder and do a lot better artwork. And I really do think my artwork improved a lot, but I think it's just like super, like they have a certain like kind of style they're looking for, or they already have certain things already for sale. So they don't want anything too similar. So, so there are the popularly voted ones get a win, and then the editors, they pick the rest of them. So you don't necessarily have to do well with the audience, but the editors need to like your stuff. You can submit all you want, so you don't necessarily know like if you're ever going to get a pick or not.
So once you've won a challenge and they're going to sell your product, do they require an exclusive license with Minted? You can't like use that design for anything else. Is that correct?
Yes. You have to, the artwork can only be for Minted. And even if you do not win a challenge, they say you can't use it for 90 days because they might still have some random picks like down the road. So, you're not like totally like screwed out of using that artwork, but you kind of are for at least like 3 months, maybe even longer if it takes them forever.
They want to give themselves a chance.
Yeah. Like sometimes, if it takes them like 2 months to announce the winners, you're still kind of like, well, just like wait around and see. So, yeah. But otherwise, your artwork doesn't go to waste. So you can always submit it to other competitions elsewhere, or your own shop. And that's kind of what I've done.
So how do you earn money on Minted? There's if they make a product of it versus if you sell it in your own shop.
Versus them actually selling it in like a Target, if it's one of those types of challenges.
So what's really nice is that they pay you upfront a flat fee for winning. So even if you don't win like first place, which can have a really good monetary prize, the editor's pick is usually always around $150.
Okay.
So then you get 6% sale, like for greeting cards, it's a 6% royalty rate, unless it's with a copywriter and an artist, like my Target card ended up being. So I get 3%. And then it's the same with Target. So you get paid based off of the actual sales in Target. So it doesn't matter if Target's carrying like 1,000 of your cards. If they only sell 200, you're only making the sales on those 200 cards.
But you've also gotten some sort of monetary prize up front.
Yes.
And then the royalty.
Yeah. And they're pretty good about paying it out. they pay it out, within like a certain time frame, like their challenge rules and the kit that you download, it's really thorough. And so it tells you like you'll get paid this much on this day. And like, here's all those little special prizes that they have. So you even have even more chances to win more money if you win a special prize down the road, which can be like months later.
So I think we just have a couple of other questions for you. So I think the first is, are there any questions that we should have asked you and we didn't?
Ooh, let's see. Putting me on the spot here.
We love this question.
Trying to think. I definitely think starting like with either anything, any kind of print on demand, whether it's Spoonflower or minted, you just have to like basically just have fun with it and go in with a good mindset and not be bummed out if you like don't win something. Because like I was saying with minted, there was a lot that I haven't won, but I've won 10 things now because I just had a couple Valentine wins come through in the past weeks.
Awesome.
But
congrats.
Thank you. So, whatever it is that you're going into, like, don't look at it as like, you're trying to like make money, get rich quick kind of scheme or anything like that. Everything is slow growth and everyone's growth looks different. And some, certain sites work better for other people. I know people have much better success on Society6 rather than Spoonflower, or Redbubble other than Society6. So,
right.
One size doesn't fit all. So you definitely just kind of have to see what works best for you. And, for me, like I have a Society6 shop and it doesn't do that great. I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law is my like biggest shopper on that site.
Yeah.
But every now and then I'll get like a little like deposit of like $13 here and there. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Someone found my stuff. So
I think I was my biggest buyer on my Society6 shop when I had one.
Yeah, it's fun just like being able to like buy your artwork yourself and see it in person. And sometimes that alone is like encouraging enough to like, want to upload your things because like you can buy it yourself and you can give it as gifts. And so that alone is fun. So I say just go ahead and do that starting out if you just want to kind of get a feel for what it's like to see your artwork on stuff.
Yeah. So I want to know, Ashley, what are some of your big influences, favorite artists? Are there any that you're just gaga about?
Oh man, there's like a ton of people. So I think my favorite pattern designers would be someone like Mabel Tan. I love her artwork and I love all the stuff that she does as well. Like she is really good about sharing tips and stuff for her audience.
She is. She's great about that. Yeah.
Yes. So I think she's a really good resource for people starting out. Obviously, Bonnie Christine, she has her groups. I'm in the Flourish, which is how I met Laura a long time ago.
Right.
And Laura and I met in Bonnie's immersion class.
Oh, how funny. I didn't know that. And so I think, being a part of groups like that, like, the Sketch Design Repeat group, I think those are just really good resources to keep yourself inspired and keep up with, what's happening out in the world. That's at least for pattern design. But, for whatever creative group you're in, I think it's really good to just find those groups of people that you can stay inspired by and get to learn from.
Absolutely. So, Ashley, where can our listeners find you online?
So I am online at Presutti Design, which is my website and my Instagram, Presutti Design. It's actually my maiden name. It confuses people a lot of the time. But
Italian?
Yes, it is Italian. It's a good conversation starter for a lot of people. They'll stumble upon me on Instagram and be like, hey, are you Italian? And
Parli Italiano?
No. I tried a long time ago and I couldn't get past adverbs. Like I couldn't tell you what an adverb is in English. So there's no way I'm learning another language very well. But yeah, that's like my little thing is I like to, have my little Italian stick, whenever I like to talk about how I eat biscottis and stuff. But yeah, that's where you can find me online. My Spoonflower shop is also Presutti Design. because it is an unusual name, it was very easy to secure all the usernames and domains. So
yeah, definitely.
I know you had an episode on that.
Yeah, definitely. It's unusual, but it's still easy to pronounce and spell. So that's a good one.
Yeah, well, good. Because a lot of people I know, they can't pronounce it. But, when I was originally deciding on what to keep my name as, I was like, you know what? Gucci and Versace didn't even probably consider changing their names. So I'm sticking with Presutti.
Right. I approve.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, Ashley. We've so enjoyed this conversation, and I know that our listeners will get so much value from your story and your advice on Spoonflower and Minted, and we're all going to be raring to go now.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I definitely hope it was encouraging and inspiring for especially new people starting out, but even people who have already dipped their toes into it. Hopefully, gives them the motivation to keep going and just to keep putting yourself out there.
We know that it will definitely be inspiring. To learn more about Ashley and read today's Startist Society show notes, go to startistsociety.com/Presutti Design. And that's, again, PRESUTTI Design.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to share it with a friend. Sharing helps us reach more Startists like you and keeps us inspired to create new episodes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.